Hello, Wes Walters here, and welcome to another CX Quickie, customer experience content real quick so that you can get back to running your business. This conversation came about because a restaurant owner reached out to me and had some concerns. Before we even begin, if you ever have a question about customer experience or customer service or ways to enhance your customer experience, feel free to shoot me a message via IG at Wes Walters and IG. I'm pretty much Wes Walters on all social media platforms, and that's Wes with two S's and Walters like Barbara Walters. So feel free to shoot me a message on IG, and I prefer if you shoot me a voice message. That way I can reply with the voice message as well. Right, let's continue. So the restaurant owner said, "Hey, Mr. Walters, I've seen a decline in tips at the register. What can I do?" I said, all right, well, you're experiencing tips at the register. Tell me a little bit about what type of restaurant do you have? I said, do you have service? He said, no. So you don't have service. So at that point, automatically, I knew he had a cafeteria style restaurant. And if you're not familiar with what the cafeteria style restaurant is, it's pretty much, so if you've ever been to a typical Jamaican or West Indian style restaurant, that's the type of restaurant that's a cafeteria style where there's a counter, you pay. Sometimes there's a tray. Most of the time, there's not a tray, but you pay for your food. You pretty much pay for the food. They give you the food. And if you want to sit, there are about a couple of chairs there to sit if you want to sit, but most of the time there's not chairs. So that's a cafeteria style. Or if there are chairs, it's limited amount of chairs. So there are no servers. It's a counter. You pay for the food. They give you the food. And if you want to sit and eat, you can. If you want to take your food and go, you can. So that's a cafeteria style. So there are no servers. But he says there's been a decline in the tips at the register. Now, before I begin, because what's going to happen is automatically after this broadcast, the servers are going to jump in the DMs and said, oh my God, Mr. Walters, you've ruined our lives. We depend on tips. How could you say such a thing? I feed my family with tips. Before we have that, I want to be very clear. Part of my life in undergrad, I was a server. So I am one of you. I'm not above you. I am equal to you. I was a server. I know exactly what you go through as a server because in undergrad, I was a server at Red Lobster on Candler Road in Decatur, Georgia. So, and even deeper than that, my mother, for most of her life, my mother sent two young men through college and a server's and a waiter's salary on tips. So before you come at me, know that I come from a long line of servers. My mother was a server most of my entire childhood life, and even I was a server in college. So this is not an attack on servers. Now, with that being out of the way, let's continue. So the restaurant owner again had a cafeteria style restaurant. Now, before we jump into this, when you check out at a cafeteria style restaurant, if you look at most of the POS, the point of sales, when they flip it around to you, the food costs $10. If they're smart, they have the reading says, hey, do you want to leave a tip? Now, from my research, because I have clients that are in the restaurant industry, there are three ways those tips pretty much are allocated. Option one is that if Jackie is running the register today, Jackie gets all of the tips that are generated that she's able to garner at the register today. It's option one. Option two is that all of the tips go into a pool, and at the end of the night, at the end of the day, or at the end of the shift, all of the employees that made that happen get the tips. It's divided evenly amongst the employees. Option three is that all of the tips go into the pockets of the restaurant owner, and that's the end of the story. Now, there's no way to determine which version of these three the restaurant that you patronize is going to use. But those are normally the three options. Of course, there are always remixes to the versions, but these are the three main ways when you decide to tip. It's either going into one of those three categories. Now, going back to the thesis statement that the restaurant owner reached out and he said, "Hey, Mr. Walters, tips have declined. What can I do?" So before we even go even deeper on that, it is the restaurant's responsibility to pay the wages of its employees. Stop right there. Let's breathe and let that sink in. Let's change the business model from restaurant. Let's say you own a sneaker store. It is the sneaker store's responsibility to pay the wages of its employees. Let's change the business model again. Let's say you have a beauty supply store. It is a beauty supply store's responsibility to pay the wages of its employees. Let's give it one more example. Let's say you have a mechanic shop. It is the mechanic's shop responsibility to pay the wages of its employees. Are we on the same page? Great. Going back to the restaurant owner that reached out, it's like, hey, the problem is tips at the register had declined. Mr. Walters, can you help? I said, John, let's call him John. Have you ever been to the United States Postal Service? He said, well, of course I've been to the United States Postal Service. I said, the United States Postal Service, you're paying them so that they can take the package from location 1, which is the post office, to the destination on the address. Is that correct? He says, yes. He says, you pay them for the job, the service that they're providing. Is that correct? Yes. I said, okay. So let's walk through going to the post office. You pull up with your envelope. I need this to go from here to there. It's going to cost you $10, John. Here's the $10. God bless you. Good afternoon. Fair. Is that normally how the transaction goes at the post office? He says, yes. So you're paying for the service. Yes. Okay. Say, now let's juxtapose that with your restaurant. As a restaurant, is it fair to say people are paying you for hot food, cold drinks? He says, yes. He says, so I come to your restaurant, said I would like a veggie burger with cheese and a drink. It costs $10. That is the service that you're providing. Hot food, cold drinks. It costs me $10. I pay the $10. Is that correct? Is that normally how the transaction goes? Yes. At that moment, I was looking at John like this at the camera, and John was looking back at me at the camera. At that moment, a light bulb went off in John's mind. Now, we looked at the camera at each other for about, I would say 90 seconds, total silence, just like this. For 90 seconds, no one spoke. And John said, thank you for your assistance. And I understand. And he ended the call. Now, I don't know what that light bulb was that went off in John's head. He never shared with me what the light bulb was. But I would like to get your take on what I just discussed. Tell me, what do you feel? Now, there was ironically, because I truly believe these phones are listening to us, right? Right when John reached out to me in my DM. Immediately after I closed the DM, this showed up on my feed. So these cell phones are definitely listening to us, all right? So this was what I saw this and I took a screenshot of it. And I want you guys to see it. Let's see. So this was what popped up on my feed immediately after sending John the DM. Of course, there's some humor to it. It says, new rule. If I order my food standing up, I'm not tipping. There's some humor to it. Some are serious. This is a cafeteria style restaurant as well. No servers involved. There are no waiters. I want to be very clear. This is not an attack on waiters. I was a waiter. My mother, for all of my life, was a waiter. My mother put 2 kids through college on waiters' tips. So I understand. And when I was a waiter, I would clean up every night. I knew that my tips depended on me wowing the customers. And if I did a great job in making them feel like they were the only person in the restaurant, it truly affected my tips. I knew that. I didn't know that a tip was required or I was entitled to a tip. I never knew that. I knew that the tip that I got was directly in proportion to the work that I delivered. So this is not an attack on servers. But again, this is what I saw right after having the conversation with John, and I thought it was timing. So, but I'd like to know what you think on what you heard. Please drop your comments in your feelings in the comments below. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. It definitely helps the channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs by December 31, and it costs you nothing. Your subscription really helps the channel grow. If you're not watching this content on YouTube, please head over to YouTube and subscribe. That's all I'm asking you to do. You just to subscribe. It costs you nothing. It really helps the channel. And again, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs by December 31. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you.